Lahat tayo.
Sama-sama nating
Maiaangat ang bayan.
Basta't sama-sama tayo.
Sa pag-ingat buhay.
Para sa ating hanap buhay.
Mask, hugas, iwas.
Magandang tanghali, Pilipinas. Ipinatawag po ng ating Presidente Rodrigo Roa Duterte si Congressman Alan Peter Cayetano at Congressman Lord Alan Velasco para sa isang pagpupulong ngayong araw po, alas 12:30. No? Ang agenda po, pag-uusapan po nila kung paano po maipapasa ang national budget sa lalong mabilis na panahon. Dahil nga po sa mga pangyayari sa Kamara de Representante, kung hindi po magkakaroon ng isang kasunduan para maipasa ang national budget, baka po maantala ang pagsasabatas nitong anti-COVID-19 budget ng ating Presidente. Ito po ay magaganap dito po sa Malacanang. Now, kahapon po, nagkaroon po tayo ng 48th Cabinet Meeting na ginanap mo sa Heroes Hall sa Malacanang. Ito po ang kauna-unahang full Cabinet Meeting matapos ang 7 buwan dahil ang huling Cabinet Meeting po ay nung buwan pa ng Marso. Now, gaya ng aking sinabi po, nung mga nakalipas na araw, tumutok po ang pagmi-meeting kung paano po mabuhay muli ang ekonomiya dahil nga po sa pandemya ng COVID-19. At kahapon po, inaprubahan po ng gabinete ang lahat ng rekomendasyon ng economic cluster, bagamat ang report po ay ginawa ni NEDA Acting Secretary Carl Chua. Ano ba po itong mga bagay-bagay na ito? Pero bago po yun, sang-ayon po kasi sa latest survey ng Pulse Asia, ay marami na pong mga senyales na ang public attention ay nakatutok na po sa mga economic concerns. 39% po nagsabi na kailangan balansehin ng gobyerno ang COVID at ang ekonomiya. Samantalang 20% naman po nagsabi na kailangang pagtuunan ng pansin ang pagbubukas ng ekonomiya. Kaugnay nito, inaprubahan ng gabinete ang pagkakaroon ng priority areas para ma-manage ang COVID-19 cases. Paano ipatutupad po ito? Ipatutupad ang Prevent, Detect, Isolate, Treat, and Recover or PDITR sa pamamagitan ng teknolohiya at disiplina. Improve ang hospital care capacity para manatiling below 70% po ang critical care. Buksan ang pampublikong transportasyon para magkaroon ng sapat na bilang. Pag-usapan natin saglit ang pampublikong transportasyon. Magsimula sa pagkakaroon ng one seat apart at paunti-unting pataasin ang seating capacity o payagan na magkaupo ng magkatabi basta may plastic barrier. Ulitin ko po, inaprubahan po ng gabinete na sa pampublikong transportasyon, one seat apart na po ang distansya. Now, papataasin din po ang rail capacity ng 30 hanggang 50%. Patataasin po ang bilang ng mga provincial buses, motorcycle taxis, shuttles at TNVS. Pabibilisin po ang paggamit ng service contracting ng mga bus at mga jeep. Mahigpit na ipatutupad po ang 7 utos or 7 commandments para sa lahat ng pampublikong transportasyon. Siyempre po, habang tayo nag-every other seat, kinakailangan naman ay sumunod din tayo dito sa mga 7 commandments na ito. At ano ba ho itong mga 7 commandments na ito? Una-una, yung pagsusuot po ng face mask, yung pagsusuot po ng face shield, bawal ang usapan, bawal po ang pagkain, kinakailangan magkaroon ng sapat na ventilation, kinakailangan po merong frequent and proper disinfection at kinakailangan po walang pasaherong symptomatic. So dapat po bago pumasok, sinecheck na po na walang symptoms yung mga pasahero at kinakailangan po yung appropriate physical distancing, one seat apart. Now, kasama po rin po sa priority areas para ma-manage ang COVID-19 cases ay pagkonsidera sa mga incremental opening ng mga negosyo sa pamamagitan ng mas maikling curfew hours at mas maraming work shifts para magkaroon ng mas maraming manggagawa at mamimili. Ang pagtaas ng business capacity galing po sa 75 to 100%. Ang pagpayag sa paunting-unting pagtaas ng age group na lumabas, halimbawa mula 15 anyos hanggang 65. Sa panig naman ng IATF, ang pagkonsidera sa pagtaas ng quarantine level bilang last resort. Kung halimbawang tumataas ang kaso ng COVID, panatilihin ang quarantine level at magpatupad ng mas mahigpit na protocols at more localized quarantine. Samantala sa IATF, DOH, DILG at PCOO, kinakailangan nilang paintingin ng communication campaign para malaman ng taong bayan kung paano po mapoprotektahan nila ang kanilang mga sarili at mabawasan ang pagkalat ng virus, lalo sa loob ng pamamahay. Tinalakay din po kahapon yung beep cards para sa mga bus. Para mabawasan ang pagkalat ng COVID-19, ipinatupad po ng DOTR ang cashless payments sa EDSA busway. No? As a backgrounder, ang mga operator ng bus ang pumili po ng AF Payments Inc. or AFPI BEEP bilang kanilang contactless payment provider. May charge para sa card issuance fee na nasa 80 pesos, transaction fee na 5 pesos at kinakailangan ng minimum balance. Nag-issue po ang DOTR ng direktiba na gawing libre ang AFCS cards at kailangan interoperable ang AFCS readers at cards. Kaya kailangan pumili ang bus operators ng contactless payment provider na makapagbibigay ng free card at interoperability requirement. Libre na po talaga ang beep cards ngayon. Punta naman po tayo sa ating COVID-19 updates. Sang-ayon po sa Johns Hopkins University, higit 37 milyon na po or 37,724,073 ang kaso ng COVID-19 sa buong mundo. Mayroong higit na 1 milyong katao naman po or 1,078,446 ang binawian ng buhay dahil sa coronavirus. Nangunguna pa rin po ang Estados Unidos, pangalawang India na may pinakamaraming kaso ng COVID-19 sa mundo, sinundan po ito ng Brazil, Russia, and Colombia. Makikita niyo po sa screen natin ang mga numero ng mga top 5 countries. Dito po sa ating bayan, naku po, tayo po ay nakapag-test na ng halos 4 na milyong katao sa pamamagitan ng PCR po. No? Ito po ay 3,914,643. Ito po ay ginawa sa 110 licensed RT-PCR laboratories and 35 licensed gene expert laboratories. Meron po tayo ngayong 43,332 active cases ayon sa October 12 case bulletin ng Department of Health. Sa numerong ito, 83.9 po ang mild, 10.8% ay asymptomatic, 1.7% ay severe, at 3.6% po ay critical. Parami naman po ang mga gumagaling. Meron na po tayong 293,152 na gumaling na nai-report din po as of October 12. Samantala, ang mga namatay po ay 6,332. Nakikiramay po tayo muli. Pumunta naman po tayo sa bilang ng yung tinatawag na healthcare utilization. No? Unang-una po, ang ating ICU beds, meron pa po tayong 53% na available. Sa isolation beds, meron pa po tayong 56% available. Ang ward beds, 56% available. At ang ventilators, 70% available. So wala po tayo sa critical level. Dito po nagtatapos ang ating presentasyon. Bago po tayo pumunta sa mga tanong ng Malacanang Press Corps, kasama po natin ngayon ang ating Budget Secretary, Wendell Avisado, at ang ating Labor Secretary, Secretary Bello. Kay Secretary Avisado po muna, napaka-importante po nitong proposed 2021 budget, SEC, dahil nasa proposed 2021 budget po, yung mga budget para sa ating anti-COVID-19 responses. Pwede ba hong pakidetalye lang kung ano-ano yung ilang mga anti-COVID-19 responses natin na nakapaloob po sa proposed 2021 budget? Secretary Avisado, the floor is yours. Secretary Avisado, wala pong audio. Pakipindot po yung nakamute po ata kayo. Yeah, meron na po. Thank you.
Secretary Harry.
The floor is yours.
Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. Magandang tanghali. Diretso na po ako doon sa proposed 2021 budget ng Department of Health. No? At dito nga po, sinumitin natin yung proposed budget for 2021 noong August 25. At dito nakapaloob ang budget ng health sector na umaabot sa 212.39 billion para po sa lahat ng mga gagawin ng ating kagawaran ng kalusugan. Ganon din ng para sa implementation ng Universal Healthcare Program. Makikita po natin sa succeeding slides ang mga major health programs na ginagamit natin upang maisuwata ang pandemya. To achieve our mission, the budgetary support was provided for the National Health Insurance Program of 71.35 billion to subsidize the health insurance premium of at least 13 million indigent families and 7 million senior citizens. 17.31 billion naman ay allocated po yan para sa medical assistance to indigent patients program para po sa ating mga hirap na mga kababayan to avail of the medical services sa lahat ng government facilities. Para naman po sa Human Resources for Health program, meron pong 16.58 billion dyan para sa hiring and deployment of about 26,035 doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers to disadvantaged communities and national hospitals. Para naman po sa improvement ng data systems, merong 51.56 million for disease surveillance and monitoring of COVID-19 and other respiratory infections. To ensure the safety of our health workers, merong 2.7 billion po nakapaloob dyan for the procurement of more than 2 million sets of PPEs for hospitals, laboratories, and regional swab centers. Dagdag na budget na 1.03 billion for procurement of RT-PCR cartridges to be used for fast and accurate testing of COVID-19 cases. 2.5 billion naman po ay para sa pagbibili ng COVID-19 vaccine. Hopefully by then meron na. That will initially immunize 3.8 million poor Filipinos. Meron din puming inilaan na 11.6 billion para sa Health Facilities Enhancement Program at pagbibili ng mga medical equipments and motor vehicles, for example, ambulance among others, and to support the research and development to address the threat of COVID-19, meron pong nakalang 283 million para sa establishment ng Virology Science and Technology Institute of the Philippines at 66 million naman para sa participation ng ating bansa sa International Solidarity Clinical Trial of the COVID-19 vaccine to be launched by the World Health Organization. Sobrang napakahirap po kung susuriin natin ang kasalukuyang sitwasyon gawa ng while we are so devoted to avoiding the risk of the pandemic, yung atin namang ekonomiya ang naapektuhan. Kaya nga po, the cabinet last night decided together with the President that instead of just risk avoidance, ang gagawin natin ay risk management. I-manage natin yung risk at the same time, bigyan natin halaga ang pagbubukas ng ating ekonomiya dahil doon po manggagaling din naman ang gagastusin natin para sa marami pang programa na kailangan isagawa ng ating pamahalaan. Kaya po makakaasa kayo na ang ating Pangulo ay patuloy na nagbibigay ng instruction sa amin na una sa lahat, unahin ang pangangailangan ng ating mga kababayan at the same time also make sure na gumugulong din yung ating ekonomiya. So yan po, in a very short presentation, ang kabuuan ng nakasaad sa National Expenditure Program para sa budget ng Department of Health para sa susunod na taon. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Sec. Wendell Avisado. Siyempre po, nandyan din sa proposed 2021 budget, yung mga stimulus package natin, lalong-lalo na para sa ating Build, Build, Build program. Usaping 13th month pay naman po tayo. Kasama po natin si Secretary Silvestre Bello ng Department of Labor and Employment. Sir, ano nga ba ho yung napag-uusapan kahapon tungkol po sa mga issues na may kinalaman sa ating 13-month pay? The floor is yours, Secretary Bello.
Thank you, Sec Harry, Sec Wendell. Good morning sa inyo. Kagaya ng binanggit ko kay Pangulong Duterte kagabi, yung 13-month pay is mandated under PD 851, dated 1975. Hindi pa tayo pinapanganak. Tayo kaming dalawa ni Sec Wendell. Yun po ang very specific provision ng PD 851. And if you notice that provision, wala pong exemption. Kaya lang, yung then Secretary of Labor, the late Senator Secretary Blas Ople, came up with implementing rules and regulation to implement itong PD 851. And under this IRR, nagbigay si Secretary Blas Ople ng exemption, meaning na as a general rule, lahat ng empleyado dapat bayaran ng mga employers. Pero yung mga employers who are classified as distressed companies are exempted under this IRR issued by Secretary Ople in December 22, 1975. Only about 5 days after the issuance of PD 851. Okay? Then, ito hindi nalalaman ng marami. Then came President, the late President Cory Aquino. On August 13, 1986, that probably 6 months after she assumed as President, she came up with a Memorandum Order number 20. And under this Memorandum Order number 20, she amended PD 851. Nobody could question that kasi Memorandum Order lang inamen ang PD. But nobody questioned that because then we were under a revolutionary government. Okay, under this, Memorandum of Agreement, meron din, nakalimutan yata ni Senator, formerly Secretary of Labor, na meron din siyang in-issue na implementing order. Also, providing for exception of some employers. So it is very clear under this facts na the Secretary of Labor has the authority to issue orders or advisories in implementing laws or constitutional provision. So, makuha niyan po. Very clear po yan. Now, regarding the issue of 13-month pay, I'll make it very clear now, Sec Harry and Sec Wendell. The law is very clear. We have to pay our workers on or before 24 December their 13-month pay. The only exception as provided under IRR of the Secretary, the late Secretary Blas Ople, is when the company is in distress. Yan po ang pag-uusapan namin mamayang alas 2 with about 20 unions and about another 20 management association to discuss the meaning or the extent of distressed companies. Yan, Sec Harry. Palalaman natin mamaya kung sino yung mga exempted. Pero last night during the cabinet meeting, I had the occasion to discuss this with Secretary Mon Lopez, my partner, the DTI. Sabi ko, Sec Mon, meron kaming proposal dito na yung mga distressed companies will be exempted. Pero meron another option kako sa kanya. The other option is instead of exemption, pwedeng deferment. And I was surprised with the reaction of Secretary Mon Lopez. Sabi niya, okay, pwede rin. Instead of exemption, pwede rin na deferment na lang. Sabi nga, no? So this will be the issue that will be discussed, and hopefully we can come up and arrive at a consensus between the workers and the employers, together with DTI and LNRC, who is also invited, and the Department of Labor. That, Secretary, is the situation of our 13-month pay.
Maraming salamat, Secretary Bello. Pumunta na po tayo sa ating open forum. I hope the two secretaries can join us for the open forum. We'll call on Yusek Roque first.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Secretary Roque. Good afternoon, Secretary Avisado and Secretary Bello. A question from Evelyn Quiroz of Filipino Mirror. For Secretary Roque, you were quoted to have said the following: panahon na po para tayo naman ay magbakasyon matapos ang napakatagal na lockdown, lalong-lalo na sa Metro Manila. Nag-aantay na po ang pinakamagandang beach sa buong mundo, Boracay, open for business. Do you honestly think that it is really safe for the general public to visit other places for a pleasure, considering the threat of COVID-19 is still very much around?
Yes, Evelyn, alam mo talagang magtatagal pa sa atin ang COVID-19. Pero alam na natin ang anyo ng sakit na yan, maiiwasan natin yan sa pamamagitan ng mask, hugas at iwas. At nais ko lang i-emphasize na ang Boracay po is COVID-free. So ang worry nga po is how to prevent COVID from entering Boracay. Hindi po paano mahahawa ng mga native sa Boracay yung mga bibisita. It's the other way around po. Kaya sa ngayon po, rini-require pa ang PCR test para masigurado na walang bisita na mayroong COVID-19 na makakapasok sa Boracay. At gaya ng aking sinabi po, no, inaantay din natin ang resulta ng antigen pilot testing sa Baguio para kung madeklarang successful po yung pilot testing sa Baguio, pwede na siguro na magamit sa Boracay din ang antigen testing.
Question for DBM Secretary Wendell Avisado. Secretary Avisado, the DBM recently submitted for approval the 2021 national budget in the amount of 4.5 trillion pesos. That amount is 10% larger than this year's 4.1 trillion budget. However, a closer look reveals that the budget of the Department of Health will actually go down to 131 billion next year from this year's 181 billion. Additionally, only 2.5 billion was allotted for the expected COVID-19 vaccine next year. In the middle of a worldwide pandemic, why is the healthcare system of this country being underfunded?
Secretary Avisado.
Masasabi ko lang po, baka inaccurate naman yung sabihin na underfunded. Sapagkat sa totoo lang, kung titingnan natin sa kabuuan, hindi lang naman Department of Health ang may programa sa COVID. Aming sinuri at ito na ay nireport na namin sa Kongreso at sa Senado na ang kabuuang COVID-19 program sa lahat ng departamento, kagawaran at ahensya ng pamahalaan ay hindi lamang nakasentro sa Department of Health. At sa katunayan, umabot ng 838 billion 353 million 953 ang kabuang kung tawagin namin COVID-19 tagged projects. So lahat ng departamento, maging ang hudikatura meron. In other words, ang buong pamahalaan po ang nagtutulong-tulong para nang sa ganon, sila man ay meron ding sariling programa. Kaysa doon ihulog lahat sa Department of Health, ito nga't ang dami na natin mga issues at problemang kinakaharap. Kahit nga lang doon sa procurement, nahihirapan na tayo. So lahat po ng mga kagawaran at ahensya ng pamahalaan, may sarili-sarili po silang mga programa. Kahit ang Department of Labor, meron din silang COVID-19 tagged projects at programs. So sana po tingnan natin sa kabuuan at hindi lang po na pinofocus lang natin sa Department of Health ang usaping COVID-19 po.
Thank you, Secretary Abisado.
Thank you, Secretary Avisado. Thank you, Yusek. Joyce Balancho, ABS-CBN, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Secretary Roque, and to our two other secretaries here in our press briefing. First, para muna sa inyo, Secretary Roque, what is the Palace reaction to the House ratification of the election of Marinduque Representative Lord Alan Velasco as the new House Speaker? And perhaps do we have a message also to Congressman Alan Peter Cayetano, who recently tendered his irrevocable resignation as House Speaker?
Well, consistent naman po ang ating presidente. Ang paghalal po ng mga liderato sa mababang kapulungan ay desisyon ng mga individual na mga representante natin. So we respect the wish of the members of the House of Representatives on who will be their speaker. No? And if it is true that it has been ratified, then so be it. In Avellino versus Cuenco, the Supreme Court ruled that only the members of the House and the Senate can determine their leadership. Good luck to those elected and congratulations to those elected by their peers in the House of Representatives. I'm just emphasizing kasi sabi mo nagkaroon na ng ratifikasyon, no? But as of the time I went on the air at 12, wala pa akong ganung balita, no? What I do know is the session held yesterday. Now I also know that si Congressman Cayetano apparently had a Facebook Live, no, where he apparently resigned, no. So I do not know factually if there has been a ratification of the election yesterday, no. So pardon me po kasi we went on the air at around 11:50, no.
Sir, this morning po kasi actually minutes before we air dito sa press briefing, nagkaroon na ng session sa Congress. And,
okay. Our congratulations then to the new Speaker of the House, Congressman Lord Alan Velasco. But as I said, that's a decision of the House of Representatives which the President respects.
Sir, given this development na formally si Velasco na po ang House Speaker and then nag-resign na nga po si Cayetano, para saan po yung meeting ni Pangulong Duterte calling these two congressmen dyan sa Palasyo?
Hindi ko po alam because as of the time I made the announcement at 10:30, I was just instructed that a meeting was called for 12:30 today and that both congressmen were expected to attend. Hindi ko po alam kung superseded na ng developments itong meeting neto. But I suppose if the President called for the meeting, it probably will push through still. Okay?
And you mentioned, sir, that the meeting was for the passage of the 2021 national budget. So up to this time, the President is not yet convinced na given his earlier warnings ay hindi pa rin mapapasa ang budget on time.
Let's just say that with the events in the House of Representatives yesterday, no, parang nagkaroon ng talagang real danger na baka hindi mapasa ang budget on time. Okay? Thank you very much,
Apo,
Joyce.
Sir, isa lang on cabinet meeting. Apo, isa lang on cabinet meeting,
Three
Secretary.
questions lang tayo. Tignan
sa...
natin kung meron tayong second round, Joyce, ha? Baka may second
Sige,
round
sir.
tayo. Yusek Roque, please.
Yes, thank you, Secretary Roque. From Virgil Lopez of GMA News Online, allies of Congressman Lord Alan Velasco elected him Speaker yesterday. Will the President recognize Velasco as the new leader of the House?
I think superseded na yung question na yan, no? Because I understand that there's been a ratification of the election yesterday. So of course, he is now the new Speaker of the House.
Second question po ni Virgil, in their latest monitoring report, the Octa research team urged the government to consider reimposing a stricter quarantine classification or implementing localized lockdowns in Bawan, in Batangas, Calbayog, in Western Samar, and General Trias in Cavite.
Well, I really appreciate the efforts po of Octa research team, no, in helping us monitor COVID cases. Pero request ko na po sa kanila na to desist from making recommendations on classification kasi talaga pang trabaho naman po yan ng mga eksperto, no? At I understand, although they have one or two epidemiologists, no, it's still not the same number of experts working with the IATF, no, hindi lang po sa DOH, no. So yun nga po, no, I wish they would refrain from making this recommendations publicly. They can probably endorse or course the recommendations privately to the IATF nang hindi naman po napapangunahan, highlighting the fact that classifications are normally announced no less than the President himself. But in any case po, sa tanong na yan, ang mga areas na rin na-recommend po nila ay Bawan, Calbayog, Western Samar, and General Trias. Meron na po tayong IATF resolution na kapag mga municipalities or bayan-bayan ang involved, po pwede na po yan aktuhan ng provincial governor in collaboration with the regional IATF. So hindi naman po yan nakakarating na sa IATF National.
Opo, pero sabi po niya kasi dito, the tightening of restrictions in 3 areas was recommended due to the increasing daily attack rate of COVID-19 in the past 2 weeks. Will the IATF consider this suggestion?
Again, sa level po ng mga bayan-bayan, hindi na po IATF National ang umaakto dyan, it's the provincial governor, no? At ang recommendation ko nga po, kung OCTAT research team will not mind, no? Kung po pwede po, let's do the recommendations privately through the IATF. We will forward it to the regional IATF if need be, no? At saka emphasizing again that only the President announces po the classification. So sana po, if the IATF itself does not make public its recommendations to the President, sana the OCTA team, and this is really an appeal, no, para hindi po nagkakagulo, can also course the recommendations to the IATF privately.
Thank you, Secretary.
Yes, Joseph Morong, please.
Hi, sir. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Secretary Abisado, Secretary Bello.
Hi, Joseph.
First question, sir, Secretary Roque. Okay, as far as Malacanang is concerned, who is this House Speaker?
That's as far as the House of Representatives is concerned. They have ratified the election of Congressman Lord Alan Velasco, no? But as I said, no, I did not see the actual ratification made by the House. I'm relying on the report of Joyce Balancho earlier to me. Kasi nga, by the time we went on the air, hindi ko na po napanood kung ano nangyayari sa House. So if it has been ratified, and it had to be ratified in Congress itself, well, congratulations po to Congressman Lord Alan Velasco as the new Speaker of the House.
Okay, sir. Second source mo, ako, yes, yes, that was ratified, and former Speaker Cayetano has tendered his resignation. So
Yes.
Malacanang recognizes
Of course.
Congressman Velasco as the new Speaker.
Our consistent position has been it is the House of Representatives that will choose their leaders, and if it has been ratified, then it is Speaker Lord Alan Velasco.
Yes, sir. How much of this is the handiwork of President Duterte?
I think it is still the individual decisions of the House of Representatives. As I announced at 10:30, they were supposed to have a meeting, and although the agenda was the budget, it was also indirectly how to resolve the impasse, because otherwise the passage of the budget might be derailed, no? So I think nagkasundo naman yung parehong panig.
Okay. So sir, ano ba yung masabay ba sila Kong Velasco at saka Kong Cayetano, magkaharap sila sa meeting mamaya or magkahiwalay?
Hindi ko po alam na ngayon kung matutuloy pa, pero pinatawag po yan ng Presidente, and my assumption is it is a face-to-face meeting between the three of them.
All right. Sir, just one last question for you before I go shortly to Secretary Abisado. Sir, would you call this intervention? Or would you still deny that this is intervention, or this is a necessary intervention?
This was a decision of the members of the House of Representatives on a purely internal matter.
And the President had nothing to do with that?
Hindi ko po alam kasi ang sabi ko nga po, nagpatawag siya ng pagpupulong, pero even before the meeting happened, nagkaroon na po ng resolution ang leadership issue.
Okay, sir. Sir, can I go to Secretary Abisado shortly?
Sige.
Hi, sir, good afternoon. Sir,
Hi, Just.
tama ba yung narinig ko, sir, as far as the budget is concerned, kung total and including all the agencies' budget for COVID response, 212 billion ba, sir, yun? Lahat-lahat na nasa 2021? And then your comment that it seems that finally the issue of the leadership in the House of Representatives is resolved?
Una, sa kabuuan, para lang sa Department of Health,
2012.
nagkaroon po ng increase yan from 185.5 billion this year to 212.4 billion this year. So may increase po siya na 26% higher than this year at por lo menos umabot ng mga 27 billion ang dagdag sa budget ng Department of Health. Sa panig naman ng DBM, kami po ay natutuwa at nagagalak na naresolba na po yung leadership issue dahil nga po kagabi sa napag-usapan namin, we cannot afford a reenacted budget at this time, lalo't higit na patuloy nating kinakahirap ang pandemya. So sana po, sang-ayon din sa naitakdanan ng proclamation ni Pangulong Duterte ay matapos at mapasa nila on third and final reading ang budget ngayong darating na Biyernes, which is October 16.
So the Senate can begin its work, parang gano'n, sir?
Ayaw po, dahil po kagad naman, kagyat, sabi ni Senate President Tito Soto, kahit naman during the break, ay tuloy-tuloy lang yung pagre-review nila ng budget.
Alright, Secretary Abisado, Secretary Roque, thank you. Regards, Secretary Bello, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
We go to
Thank you,
Yusek
Joseph.
Roque, please.
Okay, Secretary, from Chris Jose of Remate, yung daw pong pag-imbita po ba ng PCOO sa kanilang laging handa briefing kay Congressman Velasco ay pagkilala na bilang bagong speaker na mababang kapulungan ng Kongreso at si Congressman Cayetano ay dating House Speaker.
Mutin academic na po. Speaker na po talaga si Speaker Lord Alan Velasco.
Opo. Secretary, basahin ko na lang po yung second question ni Chris Jose. Sinabi po ni Congressman Cayetano na hindi raw po kikilalanin ng mayorya ng mga mababata si Marinduque Representative Lord Alan Velasco bilang bagong House Speaker dahil peke ang idinaos sa sesyon at paghala dito ng kanyang mga supporters bilang isang dating mambabatas at isang abogado. Sang-ayon po ba kayo sa sinabi ni Congressman Cayetano? Paano niyo po ilalarawan ng tila pagkakaroon po ng dalawang speaker sa Kamara? Sinabi po ni Congressman Cayetano na kapag iginit daw po ng kampo ni Velasco ang pagiging speaker nito at mga ginawa ng kanyang kampo ay mistulang Banana Republic na po ang bansa.
Mutin academic na po yan na i-ratify na po ang eleksyon kahapon kaninang umaga.
Salamat, Secretary.
Trish Terada, please, CNN.
Hi, good afternoon, Secretary Roque. Good afternoon din po kay Secretary Abisado at Secretary Bello. Sir, dito po sa nangyayaring mga kaganapan sa Congress, how would you assess the weight of the President's address recently and this leadership overall, sir?
I think the message was received by everyone that the President really needed the early passage of the proposed 2021 budget. Kung hindi po siguro dahil dito, lalo pang napahaba yung agawan sa pwesto. No? Pero the President, I think, made it very, very clear that at the time of COVID, hindi po pwede maantala yung budget niya para maging kasagutan dito sa pandemyang ito. And we thank the House of Representatives for that.
So, kumbaga po, sir, itong mensahe ni Pangulo, this triggered all the movements. Kumbaga, it caused an action on the part of lawmakers, do you think?
I cannot read their minds, but I think the message has been received that the priority is the budget, not politics.
Sir, dito lang po ulit sa nangyayari sa Congress, no? Isn't the whole gathering, the number of people and the way videos and pictures would show us, walang mga distancing, some people sometimes even don't wear masks. Hindi po ba to a violation of the quarantine protocols? And if it is, what does this say about our leaders, clearly violating protocols, if ever?
I leave it to the House of Representatives to address. Napakahirap naman po that the President, being a co-equal branch, will interfere even with the manner by which the House of Representatives met. No? So we leave it to them po. Highlighting na kinakailangan lahat po ng mga namumuno sa bayan dito ay iisa po ang boses pagdating sa mask, hugas at iwas.
But on the part of IATF, will someone be held liable for quarantine protocol violations here?
We leave it na po to the House of Representatives kasi pati po yung issue ng pananagutan, accountability, the members of Congress can only be held accountable by their peers. Yan po ang consistent ruling ng ating Korte Suprema. Kaya
Sir,
meron
siguro
po
last na
silang
po, still
House Ethics Committee.
Apo. Sir, siguro po last na on this leadership issue.
Can we go back siguro sa round 2, no? Kasi we're enforcing the 3 questions rule. So we'll go back to you if we have time. Yusek Roque, please.
All right, thank you, Secretary.
Thank you very much, Trish.
Secretary, a question from Marisol Halili of TV5. How will the development in Congress yesterday affect the passage of the 2021 national budget?
Mutin academic na po, we expect that it will be approved on third and final reading within the period covered by the President's proclamation between today until the 16th.
When the
Nawala ka.
in
Nawala.
speech that if Congress cannot solve the problem. Yes, Secretary?
Nawawala ka, yung volume nawawala.
Okay, Secretary. When the President... Okay. Ang question po second question ni Marisol Halili, when the President mentioned in his speech that if Congress cannot solve the problem, he will solve it for them, was he referring to this meeting between Representatives Velasco and Cayetano? Will the President once again mediate to settle the issue of speakership?
I have no information po, and everything is smooth and academic because the House has, without any legal doubts, elected Speaker Lord Alan Velasco.
Ang third question po niya, what does the President expect to achieve from the meeting with the Representatives Velasco and Cayetano?
Smooth and academic na rin po yan. Tapos na po ang boxing.
Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you very much, Yusek. Melo Acuña, please.
Good afternoon, Secretary. Katatapos pa lamang po ng forum ng FOCAP with General Gilbert Gapay. Nabanggit po na meron ng NBI report tungkol sa naganap na pamamaril at pagkasawi ng 4 na Philippine Army personnel sa Hulon noong Hunyo. Would you know if President Duterte has already received such copy and what were his thoughts about the recommendations of the NBI?
Well, ang recommendation naman po, kasuhan yung mga suspects, no? At when he visited Holo, meron na pong preliminary report ng NBI. Ang pakiusap lang niya sa lahat, huminahon at bibigyan naman po ng katarungan yung mga naging biktima nitong insidente ito. At yan po ang sinisigurado po ng ating presidente, justice will be done to the victims.
Yes. With your indulgence for Secretary Bello, magandang hapon po, Secretary.
Yes, please.
Secretary
Bello.
Ay, magandang hapon po.
Magandang hapon po.
Bilanggit po ng World Bank doon sa kanilang survey na isa sa bawat 2 kumpanya ang nagbawas ng kanilang kawani. Ano po kaya ang bilang ng mga nawalan ng trabaho dahil sa COVID-19 sa ating bansa?
Okay, thank you, Melo. Ang aming record will show na ang nawalan ng trabaho dahil sa COVID-19 ay 3.5 million. Pero dyan sa 3.5 million, 1.9 million ang nawalan ng trabaho temporarily. Yung nawalan ng trabaho permanently, mahigit 200,000. At yung mga hindi naman nawalan ng trabaho, kung hindi nabawasan ng trabaho, you are talking of 1.2 million workers. Yan ang issue doon sa mga 1.9 million na nawalan ng trabaho temporarily dahil under the law, they have to be rehired after 6 months. And that 6 months period ended nung September 30. Kaya the workers who were temporarily terminated were already hoping to go back to work. Kaya lang, nakiusap ang mga employers, sabi na, hindi pa rin namin kayang i-rehire yung aming mga workers. Pero sabi ko naman, under the law you have to. So sabi na, pwede ba? Can we extend the 6 months period to another 6 months period. On the basis of this request ng mga employers, kinausap ko ang mga labor group if they're open to the idea of extending the period. Kasi kuminsan kasi, Melo, mas maganda na yung temporarily terminated kaysa permanently terminated. Kasi kung ipagpipilit mo, then they will say, okay na lang, wag na lang, we will pay your separation pay. In that case, mawawala na yung employment status mo. So open ang labor dito, and that is what we are going to decide this afternoon, whether we will allow the 6 months period, and if we will allow the 6 month period extension, ano ang mga parameters? Ano mga kondisyon? Sabi ng mga workers, baka naman yung 6 months yan, ibebenta na lahat ng property na, wala na kami mabulin. Yun ang pag-usapan namin ngayong hapon, Melo, together with about 15 labor groups and the same number of employers group.
Okay. May pahabol po ako sapagkat ayon sa Department of Foreign Affairs, 213,942 overseas Filipinos ang naiuwi na sa Pilipinas. Karaniwan pong practice ng Republika ng Pilipinas na magkaroon ng redeployment matapos ang retraining ng mga overseas Filipinos. Ano pong kinabukasan para matulungan natin itong 213,942 overseas Filipinos who are now in the Philippines possibly looking for another source of income?
Melo, unang-una, I think we have to correct the figure. As of today, we have already repatriated 250,000 OFWs.
Okay.
Now, yung tungkol sa whether they will be redeployed or not, it's a matter of choice sa mga OFWs. May mga iba gustong bumalik. Yung mga gustong bumalik, tutulungan namin makabalik kasi meron pang mga open markets. In fact, there are alternative markets. And we will help our OFWs to get deployed again. Yung mga ayaw na, napagod na siguro, we will provide them initially cash assistance and livelihood assistance. Yan po, programa under the National Reintegration Program, Melo.
Maraming salamat po, Secretary. Maraming salamat, Secretary Roque. Magandang tanghali, Secretary Abisado. Thank you.
Tanghali din, Melo.
Thank you,
Salamat
Melo. Let's go back to Yusek
Thank you
Roque,
din,
please.
Melo.
Yes, Secretary, from Heidi Sangpang ng DZAS, aprobado na po ba ni President Duterte yung 1 seat apart sa public transport at pagpayag na makalabas ang 16 to 65 years old?
Well, aprobado na po yung 1 seat apart dahil isa po yan dun sa rekomendasyon ng Economic Cluster Group na inaprubahan kahapon. No? Pero yung... Wait, titignan ko itong mga recommendation. No? So nandito yung mga recommendation. Tignan po natin yung sa age group. Ang recommendation po ay gradual expansion of the age group allowed to go out, i.e. 15 to 65. No? So I suppose hindi po in-specify kasi sa recommendation kung 15 to 65 na ang recommendation, no? But it was part of the recommendation, so nakasulat po kasi dito EG 15 to 65. So it is now approved, no? It is approved because it was a recommendation approved by the entire cabinet. Okay?
Okay. Second question niya po, ano daw po yung oras ng talk to the people bukas ni President Duterte?
Alam niyo naman po kung kailan matapos po yung pagpupulong, tsaka po i-ere yung mensahe. Okay. Pierre Nada, please.
Hi, sirs. Good afternoon to all the cabinet members present.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Yes po. So for Secretary Roque, just for on the record, sir, did the President have anything to do at all with convincing lawmakers in the House to vote for Speaker Velasco, or did Speaker Velasco do everything, lobby for votes all on his own?
The President was consistent from the very beginning. It's an internal matter of the House. But certainly when there was an impasse, and there was an impasse when we had the events yesterday, he called for both, no, at 12:30 today. And I'm not even sure if that will still push through. No? So I think it is fair to say that the President respected the separation of powers and allowed the members of the House to vote for whomever they want to vote as their Speaker.
Okay, so he had no part in convincing them to side with Velasco. Kasi sir, parang may change of heart, diba? From 184 with Cayetano, some of them went to Velasco. So parang they were convinced somehow to change sides.
Not the President po. Not on the part of the President.
All right. Going on naman, sir, to the developments in the cabinet meeting. Sir, the decision on one seat apart, may we know what was the science used as basis for this rule? Because, sir, diba, technically seats differ in sizes. So if you want to be philosophical about it, sir, diba, some people, the distance will not be standard because nag-iiba-iba po yung sizes of seats, and then so the 1 meter rule here is thus put into jeopardy. And we also know that some cabinet officials weren't supportive of reducing the 1 meter requirement. So sir, may we know the discussion on this? Was there a debate that ensued on this rule, and what was the basis for this rule?
Hindi na po kasi mainit na napag-usapan itong 1 meter rule to 0.75. Napakatagal po ng pagpupulong ng ITF tungkol dito. Hindi na po inulit yung pag-uusap dito muli. Although kahapon, nandun po yung mga eksperto, meron pong eksperto galing sa grupo ni Dr. Dance, merong eksperto galing naman sa grupo ni Secretary Cabral, at hindi na nga po nadinig ang expert except for one, but the President cut short the expert who was giving her opinion kasi parang tapos na yung meron ng consensus on the issue. So I guess I'm answering that as far as the reducing the 1 meter distance is concerned, it was arrived at as a matter of consensus, and it is based on science. It is based on studies which Dr. Dairit presented to the IATF. I do not have the study before me right now, but I can text to you the study cited by Dr. Dairit.
So sir, what was it that convinced the President and cabinet officials like si Secretary Anyo and Duque, who weren't for the reduction in distancing? What convinced them finally to change their mind about it?
Well, the fact that we needed really to open the economy because the lockdowns have been causing poverty and malnutrition on the part of our children. And the fact that we have the 7 commandments, no? Now, if you wear a mask, you wear a face shield, you don't speak, you don't eat, may proper ventilation, yung frequent and proper disinfection, walang asymptomatic passengers, at saka yung meron pa ring social distancing, this will reduce the risk of acquiring COVID-19 in public transportation.
Okay, and then sir, last question. Sir, yung what the cabinet decided na last resort na lang po yung changing the quarantine classifications of regions. So does it mean, sir, that Metro Manila will stay under GCQ for an indefinite period of time? Wala na po yung mga changing every month. And what exactly does last resort mean? What are the parameters for saying that we have now reached the point where we have to change the classification of a certain region?
Well, I think by last resort is meant last resort. Common meaning of last resort. Kung wala na po talagang magagawa, tsaka tayo magre-resort again to lockdowns. Pero for now, the strategy remains granular and localized lockdowns. Okay, thank you, Pia. We go now to Yusek Roque.
Secretary, questions from Jenaline Cabiling of Manila Bulletin on the cabinet approval of economic clusters. Recommendations, what are the priority areas where COVID cases must be managed?
Siyempre kung saan yung mga lugar na matataas ang attack rates, no? At saka titignan din po natin yung critical care utilization rate ng lugar. So pinalitan lang po natin yung case doubling type ng attack rates, tapos tinitignan pa rin po natin yung critical care capacity.
Second question po niya, when will the government enforce the one seat apart rule in public transportation, shorter curfew hours, gradual expansion of business capacity? Will this still require resolution from IATF? Isn't the government concerned easing lockdown measures might lead to a spike in COVID cases?
Hindi po. Unang-una, it will be effective upon publication po in the official gazette, no? Hindi na po kinakailangan ng IATF meeting yan kasi it was a full cabinet meeting, no? Pangalawa po, hindi naman po, no? Dahil tingin ko after 6-7 months of lockdown, alam na natin ang gagawin. Mask, iwas, hugas.
Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you. Yusek, Mela Lesmores, please.
Secretary Roque, may first question po. Nasabi na bukas ay may meeting nga si Pangulong Duterte at public address. Ano po kaya yung mga tatalakayin sa meeting niya with IATF na hindi pa natatalakay sa full cabinet meeting?
Well, yung ulat sa bayan naman po, primarily tungkol po yan sa COVID-19 and our responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. So pareho pa rin po.
Opo. Can I go to Secretary Abisado, please, sir?
Yes, please.
Opo. Secretary Abisado, para lang po sa kaalaman ng ating mga kababayan, may I ask kung ano po ang comparison kung sa COVID-19 response ng pamahalaan, kung magkakaroon ng reenacted budget ang pamahalaan at kung maipapasa naman on time ang proposed 2021 national budget.
Ay, opo. Kung maipapasa natin ang 2021 budget, edi hamak na wala tayong masyadong problemahin na usapin patungkol sa COVID-19 dahil nakalatag na po lahat yung mga programa, proyekto at mga nagagawin pa nating pagsisikap para nga po maibsan ang epekto nito, lalo tigit sa ating ekonomiya. Sa kabilang dako, kung ito naman ay maantala at hindi maipasa on time, di pag nag-reenacted budget po tayo, mahihirapan po talaga tayo dahil hindi tayo makakapag-implement ng mga projects na nakapaloob sa National Expenditure Program for next year. Ang tanging magagawa lamang natin ay magpasahod at yung continuous operation natin, ang MOOE, pero pagdating sa capital outlay, at lalo tigit doon sa pagbibili na kung ano yung mga pangangailangan dahil sa patuloy natin na pinagsisikapan nga na maibsan ang dulot nitong pandemya ito ay hindi po mangyayari yan. So talagang mahihirapan po tayo talaga. Sobrang hirap. Kaya we cannot afford, as the President was saying, we cannot afford to have a reenacted budget. Opo.
Opo. And sir, panghuling tanong na lamang po, with this statement nga po, ano po ang mensahe natin hindi lang sa Kamara, kundi maging Senado when it comes to pagpasa nga po ng proposed 2021 national budget?
Alam naman namin po na ang mababa at mataas na kapulungan ay nagsisikap din po sila. At kinikilala po namin ang kanilang pagsisikap at pagtulong sa ating pamahalaan dahil we respect each other's area of jurisdiction and separation of powers. Kaya nga po kami ay umaasa at nakikipagkaisa naman kami sa kanila at tumutulong na kung ano pa yung po pwedeng gawin para nga po mapadali ang proseso ng pagpasa ng ating budget for next year. At hopefully, ito nga at na-resolve na yung leadership issue, ay tuloy-tuloy lang po sana at umaasa kami na sa Friday at the latest ay maipasa na on third and final reading sa mababang kapulungan ang national budget for 2021 po.
Opo. Thank you so much, Secretary Abisado, Secretary.
Yes, thank you very much, Mela. Round 2, Joyce Balancio, maximum of 2 questions on the round 2, please.
Yes, Secretary Roque, doon lang po sa one seat apart na rule or policy na natin. So just to be categorical about it, we're now dropping the 1 meter physical distance between passengers and wala tayong specific na distance na measured distance between passengers, only 1 seat apart. Because many are asking, Secretary, paano to ipatutupad, for example, sa mga jeep, yung 1 seat apart?
Ay, ano naman po yan. I'm sure the OTR will issue the final guidelines, pero 1 seat apart is 1 seat apart po. Hindi po pwede magkakatabi.
And sir, wala tayong specific, as of now, wala tayong specific distance sa parang 0.75, gano'n. Basta
Wala na po.
1 seat apart relative.
Wala na po. And I'd like to underscore that the approval of this resolution is now unanimous.
Okay, yung MGCQ for NCR, was it discussed during the cabinet meeting yesterday?
Hindi pa po. 1 month po kasi ang ating classifications.
All right, Secretary, thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Joseph Morong, round 2. Go ahead, Joseph. Wala kang audio.
Great. Hi,
Yes.
sir. Good afternoon, sir. Okay, game. Sabi po nung ating kakilala pareho ay tuloy pa rin po yung meeting nila Kong Velasco and Kong Cayetano. Sir, yung message na lang sa kumpas na lang ni Presidente dun sa mga kongresista now that the leadership issue has been resolved. At ang expectation po ba natin to pass yung budget from both houses of Congress by what dates or December yung kailangan natin ma-beat?
Well, unang-una nagpapasalamat po kami sa lahat ng miyembro ng Kamara de Representante dahil pinakinggan po nila yung pakiusap na ating presidente na sana isang tabi muna ang politika at isulong muna itong anti-COVID-19 budget natin para sa taong 2021. Maraming salamat din po kay dating Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano, and congratulations and salamat din po kay Speaker Lord Alan Velasco. No? We look forward to working closely with Speaker Lord Alan Velasco because he is also a very close ally of this administration, at tingin ko naman po magpapatuloy ang buong kooperasyon ng Ekotibo at ng Kongreso under the leadership of Congressman Speaker Lord Alan Velasco.
Sir, last na lang. Sir, yun pong, hindi ko lang kung tama yung kinig ko, yun pong dating natin binagbabawalan ng mga minors and then yung seniors, pinapayagan na ba, sir, natin siya under the new...
Nabago lang po yung edad. Nabago lang po yung edad.
Edad.
No? Ibinaba
Okay,
to
so, sir,
15 to... pero ito po, EG 15 to 65. No? So, I think ang ibig sabihin nito is babaguhin talaga yung edad. Pero let me see, I think we will give some leeway to the IATF to actually fix kung anong edad yan. No? Pero nakasulat dito, EG is, for example, 16 to 65. No? But what was approved was yung gradual expansion of the age group allowed to go out. No? So, titignan po natin if it will really be 15 to 65. Kasi dito sa recommendation, hindi fixed which I just read, no? EG, which is, for example, 15 to 65. Pero bigyan natin ng leeway ang IATF muna, no?
Sir, kung halimbawa, yan yung masusunod, although that's just an example, ang pwede nang lumabas would be, assuming ma-solidify yan, 16 to 64, di ba?
Well, I think it's up to 65 years old. Okay? Before 66 years old.
So sino pwedeng lumabas? Anong edad, sir, yung anong edad?
Tignan po natin.
Na...
Tignan po natin kung ano magiging deklarasyon ng IATF, pero mababago na po yan. It will not remain to be 21 to 60 right now. I think mabababa yung edad ng kabataan at matataas yung edad ng mga seniors. I think I'm almost sure that 65 will be the age for seniors. Hindi lang ako sigurado at what age for the young people.
65 meaning 65 above can not go out?
Except for necessities. And except for Boracay.
Okay, so tama nga.
Okay.
So
Two
tama
questions
nga,
lang.
sir.
Ikaw,
Kung
sobra
16 to 65 ka, pwedeng lumabas 16 to 64. Hindi,
antayin na lang po
namin,
natin
sir,
sa
final
IATF
word.
talaga yan. No? Kasi ang nakasulat dito kasi, this is the confusion. It's EG, for example, 15 to 65. What was approved was the gradual expansion of the age group allowed to go out. So let's leave it to IATF to fix. Okay?
We'll just wait, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Trish Terada.
Sir, two questions short lang. Sir, una, is Malacanang optimistic na mapapasa yung budget given the changes now or given what's happening in the Congress? Or do you think these change in leadership in the middle of budget deliberations will affect the budget pa rin po?
Now the President is very optimistic.
Na mapapasa po?
Na mapapasa po yan. Kasi naisang tabi na nga po yung politika and they can now concentrate on passing the budget in the House.
Sir, final question. Napag-usapan po ba kagabi sa cabinet meeting? Because I remember yung DOH wrote a suggestion to President Duterte na standardize po yung cost ng PCR testing para mas mapababa or para mas abot kaya ng lahat yung presyo ng PCR po.
Hindi po na-discuss kagabi.
Thank you, Secretary. Salamat po.
Thank you very much, Trish. So, kung wala na po tayong katanungan, maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat sa inyong pagsubaybay sa ating press briefing. Maraming salamat po sa ating mga kasama sa Malacanang Press Corps. Maraming salamat, Yusek Roque. Thank you to our two guests, Secretary Avisado and Secretary Bello. And again, sa ngalan po ng ating Presidente, ito po ang inyong spokes Harry Roque. Nagpapasalamat po, lalong-lalo na sa mga miyembro ng Kamara dahil naisantabi po ang politika para po maipasa ang ating pangtaunang budget sa taong 2021. With that, please stay safe, and we'll see you again on Thursday. Good afternoon, Philippines.
Bye, folks. Thank
Matinding kalaban ng COVID.
Ayokong makahawa.
At mahawa.
Pero kailangan ko na magtrabaho.
Kaya di ako magiging pabaya.
Di matigas ang aking ulo.
Iingatan ko ang aking sarili.
Para maingatan ang pamilya ko.
Ito ang ambag ko.
Ako.
Ikaw.
Lahat tayo.
Sama-sama nating
Mayaangat ang bayan.
Basta't sama-sama tayo.
Sa pag-ingat buhay.
Para sa ating hanap buhay.
Mas hugas iwas.